Hi everyone, it's Emoni from Emoni Reads and Reviews, and today we are reviewing the Netflix special K drama When Life Gives You Tangerines. This was a limited series, so let's begin. Alright, so this is the presentation outline and what I'll be speaking about today. I'm going to talk about the background of the show. We'll do a character analysis. We'll speak about the hardships and the great times, the coincidences in this show. We'll also talk about what I appreciated in this series. We're going to do a show rating, and then I'll speak about the biblical meaning behind the show, and then a conclusion. Background of the show. This show follows a young girl from a small remote town in South Korea who seems to have such a tough time living despite her intelligence. She is constantly kicked around and is made to always regret being born a woman. She eventually grows and realizes what's around her is her reality. But will she come to love that? So let's take a deeper look into the TV series When Life Gives You Tangerines. Character analysis. All right, so these are the first two characters of the series that we'll be discussing. They are the main characters of this series. So, the young lady, her name is Oe Soon, and the young man, his name is Young Gon Sik. So, I'll discuss Oe Soon first. She has had a lot of adversities in her very young life due to losing her father and her mother at a very young age. Um, but we'll speak more about her losing her father and why, in her tradition, she had to stay with her family at her father's house with her grandparents and all of her cousins and all of that, right? So they kind of mistreated her because she was born a woman anyway. And then also, they just wouldn't feed her like the better foods. And, they wouldn't like really recognize any of her accolades at school and everything, and her mother realized that Oesun was getting treated so poorly, so she just always decided to kind of look after her. So I will talk more about her mom on the next slide, but some characteristics about Oesun is she is intelligent, she's a writer, she's kind and grateful, she is ambitious, she's loving, she's bold and resilient, and she's a great mother and wife. So, when I say she's resilient, it's because of all of the adversity she has gone through. But her being so intelligent, she wanted to have the whole world. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to be a poet, and for some reason, her life just kept getting in the way. Like where she lived, her traditions, the small communities she grew up in, it wasn't a lot of opportunities. So it was a lot of stuff that she had to she tried to do to become someone, successful, someone who could be able to go become a writer or, get married to some rich guy, which I'm going to also explain later on. So now go to Yang Wan Sik, and he is this young man here. He is a great friend. He was a great husband and father. He spent his entire life loving his family that he created with Oyasun, and he enjoys fishing, and he loves his daughter, and he stands up for his family. So what I really enjoy about this character is that you don't see too much of him in the aspect of, what he really enjoys or what he really likes. Even as a young child, he's always followed Oyasun like a little puppy, because he's always loved her and had a caring for her, even though, as a child, he didn't, he didn't have any other interests other than her. Like, he would say things like, if always soon says she wanted to be like the president, he'll say something like, oh, well, I want to be the president's husband. That's how like glued he was to her. And I really thought that was really sweet, because even when she was really little and she lost her mom and she lost her father, he was always there for her, and she would get really irritated by that. But eventually their bond like definitely grew, and always soon would just kind of like when they became high school students, always soon try to be annoyed with him as they got older, but deep down she really did start to like him a lot, and she even wrote poetry about him, and he read it, and you know he found it to be really sweet what she said about him, and then they end up dating and everything, and then soon after that it became, they decided to kind of run off and get married. And I want to talk a little bit more about them running off, because that whole thing was just really sweet, because honestly, Oisin, she really wanted to be something successful. So they run off to like some city called Busan or something like that, but it's in Korea. And they run off, and they're just like, look, we're young adults. You're going to pretend that we're not teenagers anymore. We'll just pretend that we're married and everything like that. So that entire situation was really sweet. And then they they end up coming back and getting married off, and then later, soon after that, they had like a kid 6 months later. So that's kind of like the beginning of their story. And I'll talk a little bit more about their story, as this presentation progresses. All right, everyone. So this is Jongguan Rai, and she is Oe Soon's mother. She's a diligent mother, and she's a hard worker. She's tougher on her oldest daughter, but she loves her. She realizes how tough things may be for her oldest daughter due to the circumstances in her life, and basically because her first husband passed away. So that was Oe Soon's father. So she realizes because her father did pass away, her daughter would have a tougher life. But she always looks after her daughter. She passes away at an early age, which does have a huge damper on Oyesun's life. She is very attentive as a mother. She wishes to come back to Earth as a woman who can work in a desk job. All right, so this is Park Mok Chan, and she is the grandmother of Yang Guan Sik. She is very superstitious. She continuously tells her granddaughter in law that her granddaughter in law is a step above, to kind of torment her son's wife. So Yang Guan Sik does marry Oe Soon, and this entire family does not like that because they feel like Oe Soon is cursed and she would bring bad luck to their family. So initially, Yang Guan Sik's mother actually did care for Oe Soon as a child because she was really good friends with her mother and they all worked together, right? But as they got older and feelings started getting caught up with everything, and Park Mak Chan and her entire family, they realized that Yang Guak Sik is pretty much attached to this girl and she's going to bring her bad luck. They did everything they could to try to like break them up, but it didn't work because they end up being married to each other. He treats her very well and she ends up really loving him and caring for him throughout the entire series. So let's get back to Park Mak Cheon. She is unwilling to change because she is traditional and she sees gifts within her children and also her grandchildren and her great grandchildren. So, again, she is a very superstitious woman. So, she just feels like anything can cause bad luck and will be just damning to their family. All right, so let's talk about these two characters. The lady here, her name is Kim Chan Oak. She is the grandmother of Oe Soon's father. So I really enjoyed her character in this story because she just always cared deeply for her family, and she realized that often her family was burdened, well, she seemed to be burdened by her family because some of the choices that they made, but overall she still really loved them, and she had such a heart for Oe Soon's mother and also Oe Soon because of their circumstances in life, losing their she lost her husband, which her husband was Kim Chun Oak's, that was her son. So she realized that that caused a lot of strain financially on their family, and she had such a heart for Oye Soon because, people would always mistreat her because her dad passed away, and people just felt like she was kind of, like an orphan at that point. But she makes a promise to Oesun's mother to always take care of Oesun, and whenever she comes to her when she gets older and really needs her, she makes a promise before she passed to, please take care of my daughter. So I really appreciate this character because even in her passing, before she passes, she is reconnected with Oyasun's mother again, and she goes, "Oh, have you enjoyed your life?" And she can honestly say, yes, she really enjoyed her life. Because she got to see all of her family grow up, her children, her great grandchildren, her grandchildren, everyone around her. This She was just filled with love. Now we have Ohanmu. He is very controlling. He is the second oldest of the family. He tries to control his mother's feelings, controls his mother's decisions, yet he has the son who completely went away from the family traditionally wise. He gambled, he smoked, he drank all his money away. So he'll try to come back because he's like now like the eldest like grandchild, but he isn't really doing too good in life. So Ohan Mu, he just tries to like, prop his son up, well, by saying, oh well, he's the oldest, but really he was really destructive. And Kim Chan Ok, she's not really falling for that because, she makes it known that, hey, I'm going to help Oe soon because she truly doesn't have anybody, but your son had all of us and he just blew his life away. Okay, so this is Kwang Ge Ok. This is Yang Guan Six's mother. Initially, I did like this character a lot, and I grew to like her again after I disliked her a few episodes. But she loves her son deeply and wants the best for him. She stays loyal to only her son, and not his wife, which is Oe Soon. She initially loved Oe Soon because she worked with her mother, but once she realized that her son really loved Oe Soon, she tried her best just to stop them from getting married because she felt like, because she has so much pressure from Park Mat Chan, which is the grandmother who's superstitious. She was like, hey, look, don't let your son marry into that family because we'll all have bad luck. And she kind of went behind her son's back to tell Oisun, like, look, don't pursue my son because he's going to be a track star. The only reason why this man, or this young boy, Young Wan Sik, decided to do track is because he would be able to see Oesun from the crosswalk at their gym. So that's the only reason why he ran so fast, so he could see her. He truly did not like to run or do anything. So with that being said, this woman, she pretty much wanted her son all to herself in a way where she just did not want her family to be cursed, and she did not want to be mocked by her, Park Mok Chun, which continuously did mock her throughout the series. And eventually she was on her side a little bit, but then she soon to realize that Oesun is not as bad as, they initially thought. So this is this lady. I just feel like, when you have your son, you let them go and let them be married and let them be husbands. Do not, keep them. No, don't keep them for your own little play, because there's another character in this story whose mother did that, and I'll show you how his life ended up. All right, so let's talk about these characters. The man, his name is Bu Sang Gil, and the woman's name is Park Yang Ran. So this couple is very rough to really talk about. Their dynamic is absolutely abusive and controlling, and there's a lot of adultery in their relationship due to the man, because he does not respect his wife. He never respected his first wife, and he never respected Park Yang Ran, which is his second wife, who's done everything in the house, raising his two older sons, looking after her child, and accepting all the abuse that he goes to. And deep down, she really cares for him a lot, but she eventually gets tired of his crap, which is understandably. He was just not good to her. He had a really bad disposition about women to begin with, and if he couldn't get his rocks off with women, he would just like blatantly disrespect them. And he also was supposed to marry Oe soon, and Thank God he didn't. And the reason why they were supposed to get married is because soon in her mind she really wanted to go to college. So she figured, marrying him, who is, Busan Gil, who is a rich man, it would allow her to write her poetry and also be able to go to school. Thankfully, that did not happen because again, he was abusive a few times throughout the show, and if it wasn't like physical, it was definitely like mentally abusive. This like psychologically abusive because like every single time this woman would cook and clean and take care of these kids, like he would just like sit around saying, "Oh, you don't do anything," blah 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 like that. When really she was doing a lot. So um eventually they get divorced and everything, and he starts to realize that, wow, my wife, I actually kind of miss her. She actually did do a lot for me. And like what's unfortunate about Taboo Sangil is that he realizes that Yangon Sik, the way he loves his family, could have been the same way he could have loved his very own family, but he pushed his entire family away because he always has the saying, "How dare you?" Because he doesn't want anybody to defy him. But he has done some really like terrible things to a lot of people in the community and also his family. So Park Young Ran, she actually was able to receive a field. I forget what it was. I don't know if it was blossoms or like tangerines, but she was able to get a field from his mother because she actually took care of Busan Gil's mother as well. And that was a gift that she offered. So instead of staying in an abusive relationship, she now was able to leave him and have the money to take care of herself. And she also ended up getting a real estate license. So she also eventually got a career. So I will explain that a little bit further, like in the next presentation, like in the next few slides. But yeah, this is this relationship. All right, so now I'm going to talk about these characters. Gang Umong is the young man. He is the son of Oe Soon, and he is the second born, who is extremely similar to his father's in terms of how he treats his wife. He has some coward tendencies due to being so young, and he is always in and out of trouble, and he grows up to be a loving husband and father. Now, Boo Hong Suk, she is this young lady here. She has a buzz cut because I'll explain later. But she is often ignored by men in her family. She is a hopeless romantic. She's similar to her husband, generally wants the best for her husband and sticks up to people who mistreats her husband. So I would say with these two characters, they grew up being completely abandoned, not really necessarily on the young man's side. The young man did have a lot going on with his family because always soon they did lose another child. So it was harder to raise their two other children. So he suffered in terms of not always having active parents. So he just seemed that he just felt that he was always left out in terms of being loved. So he was always in and out of trouble, getting caught up with the wrong gang. He had friends who actually pinned him for a very serious crime that ended him up in jail, which he didn't even do. And then this young lady here, she's like trying to get into like all these like, fashion things just so she can get attention, but her dad and her brothers really treat her bad. So she just seemed like she's never really had anybody. And then because the way her mom is, her mom tried to tell her to, be tough in life and try to tell her just to be safe in life, but she didn't always have somebody to kind of protect her. So when she met this person from Oesun's, side where, their families clearly don't get along, she realized that, okay, yeah, we don't get along, but we're going to love each other for who we are. So they ended up together. And honestly, as the story progresses, they actually had a pretty great relationship. All right, so this is Park Young Bam, and at first I absolutely loved his character. I thought he was so sweet, but turns out he wasn't. So he was the one who was supposed to marry Oe Soon's daughter, and we're going to meet her in the next slide. But characteristics about this guy is, at first he seemed like to be really caring to for Yang, which is their daughter, and truly wanted the best for her. But they both are from two different economic backgrounds. Often, Park would judge the little things Yang would do and where she lived, which she couldn't control. Ultimately, they decided to make things work out and got engaged, which ended poorly due to Park not sticking up for Yang, which is, they had a lot of issues because of his mother. And I think all of us kind of know what I'm going with this. He was a mama's boy, so he did not listen to his girlfriend and his fiance when she was going through a lot of hell because of his mom. And he ultimately decided against marrying her because he wanted to still be a mama's boy. And the mom just kept threatening him, saying, you're supposed to stick up for me. You're my son, and this and that and the third. And I have all the money. And she kept mentioning all of that. So turns out what happens towards the end of the series is he had a wake up call, and the mother did too, because he ended up marrying another woman from a richer background as he, and the mom ended up suffering because the son resented her, and she was passing away and the son still resented her, and she just kept crying, saying, oh, I wish I had my family with me. I wish the people loved me and my family. So people like this, it's a good example of, you do not pick your family over the woman that you're supposed to marry. And I wish men would not have that mentality where they feel like, well, I need to listen to my mom and listen to my dad. And you see this a lot with different cultures, not always with Americans, but like a lot of times with different cultures, they have like this situation where they feel like they need to do this and that and the third. But ultimately, it made both of them resent the situation that they had growing up, and like, as they got older. And that's just so unfortunate, because when you're an adult, your mommy and daddy can't take care of you anymore. Like, yeah, they can help you here and there, but they're not supposed to help you when you have your own relationships. And like, I even learned that, like, I can't just keep going to everybody about my own stuff. No, because you're an adult, you have to work through that, and you have to figure out what you want in your life. This could have been a great couple, because again, he was so sweet. I loved them together. Like, I really did. I thought he was such a sweetheart. Like, when they first met each other, like, he was like so like obsessed with her. Like, he was just like so sweet, and he wasn't even doing the love bombing thing. Like, he genuinely cared for her, even when they were just friends and she broke up with him like 8 different times. He generally cared for her. Even as he got older, he cared for her, but she got married to someone else because he couldn't stop being a coward. So, yeah. Okay, so these two characters are also like my second two favorite characters, I guess. So the young lady, her name is Young Gam Mong, and she's very intelligent. She's just like her mother, and she's also very stubborn. She is the firstborn daughter, so she felt guilty about her parents taking so much great care of her, and also paying for her to go to school, and also paying for her to study abroad. She loves her parents, especially her father, but she shies away from showing it. She is also the one who kind of kept her young brother, sane when they were going through a lot of issues with, losing a child at a very young age. She is someone who's also very hard on herself, and you can see that throughout the show. She doesn't allow nobody to love her, not even her own parents, which is crazy, but she's a really sweet person. She just doesn't really like to show it too much. Now we have Park Chung Sub, and I absolutely love him so much. He is so adorable. But this guy is very talented. He's kind of like an undercover type of artist. He's a lovely poet. I mean, not a lovely poet, but a lovely like painter. And he tried so hard to kind of get himself out there, getting his paintings together. And these two actually met because Yang, she was living with a family who kind of rented her out a room because she was a broke college student, which we all were, let's be real. So she lived with this family, and the first time she's ever met her future husband was because he was dating a girl from the family that she was living with, and this girl was very mean to him. She would belittle him all the time. She'd say, "You're a worthless poet, you don't have anything." Well, painter. She was like, you don't have anything going for yourself. I pay for everything. I pay for our whole dates. I pay for you to stay. I pay for you. You're mine." Pretty much like treating him like a little slave, right? So Yang always stood up for him, saying, "Look, you can't be with somebody like that. Like, are you crazy?" And he kept going back. So when they were friends and everything, she kind of stood up for him often and a lot. He bought her, well, he gave her a job and stuff working at the movie theater where he used to paint these beautiful portraits at, right? So, okay, look. I'm just going to tell y'all the whole rundown because they are so cute. Oh my gosh. So he gives her this job, and everybody who worked at the job, there is just like, "Hey girl, you know that you met him, you're most likely going to end up with him." And they said the same thing to him. "You gave her this job, you're most likely going to end up with her." And the crazy thing is, they were both dating different people. He was dating that girl who was really mean to him, and she was dating Park, the guy who was a coward and didn't stick up to his mom, when he was dating her, right? So they would walk home together, and there was an incident where Yang and Park, they were walking like home in this really bad area. It was kind of impoverished, right? But it was in Seoul, and that was next to her college. She had to live there, and she was walking with Park Sub, right? So what happened was, her boyfriend at the time, the one she was supposed to get married to, he was saying, "Oh, this is such a dingy area. Why do you have to live like this?" He was just crying out for her to stay with him, and this and that and the third. And it kind of made like Park Chung Sub kind of feel a type of way, because he's just like, "Look, I'm here with her. Like, what's going on? Like, we always walk together. There's no problem," which it was never a problem. So eventually, when everybody kind of, um, start to kind of move apart from each other, that's when Park Chung Sub and Yang Guam Myung, they started to really get close to each other, and they realized that they do have feelings for each other. Specifically, Park Chung Sub realized he definitely had feelings for her, and he did not really want to be with his current girlfriend who treated him like crap, but he still was with him. And he kind of mentioned during Christmas that they were looking at this beautiful tree lit up in Korea, and he said, "You know what? You remind me of that tree," and it made her blush. And I thought that was really sweet. It was like a beautifully lit Christmas tree. So, eventually, he goes off to the war after she snuck up into his house to deliver him some food. So the mean girlfriend, Park Chung Seo's mean girlfriend, was there saying, "Who is in this house?" And he didn't even know somebody was in the house, and she didn't realize, okay, y'all clearly was been seeing each other and this and that. So when the girl found out, "Oh, well, you're seeing my man," and she knows them because they all live together in that old one digi apartment. So she starts kicking her shoes out the way and being really mean. But fast forward, these two get married after the guy goes to the army. When he gets back from the army, he realizes he sees her on the bus, and he decides that, "You know what? I'm going to date you now because I like you." So they date and they get married. And again, I don't know if I've done this guy any justice, but I think he's so cute and so sweet. Oh my gosh, he's so adorable. Like, he literally treats her so well. And like, the dad gave her so much crap, but he realized, "Oh my gosh, you actually treat my daughter so well. You look after her and you really genuinely care about her." So this was a better choice. I thought they were so sweet. All right, so these are the aunties. I am referring to them as the aunties because everyone in the show referred to them as the aunties, and I don't remember all of their names. So these ladies, they were really tough throughout the series. They always looked out for the children and also all the women and the men in the community. They had a very watchful eye. They weren't afraid of anyone, not even the men in the community who were kind of trying to roughhouse them and be tough. No one could like come at them because they were highly respected, and they always took care of everybody in the community. Um, they had a lot of male dominated jobs. A lot of the people in the series, even Aosun, they all were fishermen. That's what everybody in this community did to make a living. So this is what they did. They protected everybody in the community. They looked at after all the children, especially Aosun. Even when she was a little girl, they always looked after her because when her mother passed, her mom actually worked with these ladies as well. So they knew the mom, they knew their entire family, and then they watched Oe soon grow up. So they all took care of each other, and they also took care of her children when she started to have children. So these ladies are really cool. I really enjoyed them in this series. They kind of made the series pop because during this time period, you don't always see women in a good light where they're actually being respected. But these women were definitely respected, and nobody played with them. They did not mess around. They messed around with nobody. So, yeah, I like these three ladies. Yeah, there are four here, but this lady on the end right here, she is whose mom is that? She is Sik's mom, the man who married Oye Soon. But the other three ladies behind her, those are the three aunties. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the hardships of this series. When Life Gives You Tangerines is such a beautiful story about everyday life that many people all over the world may be able to relate to. And just like life, it comes with many adversities that may make life a bit more difficult. But this show has shown me that with love, anything can be resolved. So we're going to talk about Oye soon. In the beginning of her life, she had had such a tough life because she lost her father young, and it was this really difficult on her mom. And because her mom remarried, Oye soon had to go back to her father's household, which was, with her grandmother and everybody else in that family, because that was just a part of their traditions. They realized, Oye soon's mom realized that she was being treated poorly, so she came back to get her daughter, and her daughter just lived with her mom. But then she realized, they were having such a beautiful time, and she was really getting used to her daughter being around. And don't get me wrong, her mom was very tough. Like, she did not play around, and she did not want to show too much affection to Oesun. But then she started showing affection to her, and then all of a sudden she was diagnosed with, like, I think it was like some type of cancer, but we just knew that she was going to pass. So when she did pass, we start to see a lot of Oyesun as a child, that we realized that she's very intelligent. Her mom loves her intelligence, and a lot of people in her community, they realize she's intelligent, but they know that, what can you do about that when you're a girl and you live in the community that you live in? So she had to often put her education aside because she wasn't able to use it. She was always in a book, which I really love that, because I was like that as a kid too, always in a book, because that's, you don't have much, just what you do, and it's really good for your brain to like continuously read and like understand math, things like that, right? So Oye soon wasn't able to get an education, and she realized that her surroundings is going to be her life. Like, she didn't have much to go to, so she just thought she had to settle. And when she married Sick, she was very happy that she married him, but they also like ran off with each other, which is like really cute. But they ran off with each other, and they came back and she was pregnant, but she didn't know. But they got married anyway, and at first everything was going really well with them. They were living with their family in their family's household, but a lot of stuff financially wasn't going the way that they wanted it to go because they were young and they didn't have a lot going on. So her husband's family, they did not like her because they just thought that she was cursed, but she was married into their family to begin with, and they cannot stop that. So her family didn't appreciate her, and often her family would like, his family, not her, but his family did not appreciate her, and they would like, beat on her, treat her like crap. But because the type of woman she was becoming, she did not want anybody, she didn't want her husband to suffer the consequences his family treating her like crap. So she never came to him when her mom, when his mom was treating her like crap. She never came to him when the mom like hit her and wouldn't feed her properly, because the man was working a fisherman job. He was working probably like 70 hours a week just on, the seashores, just trying to, provide for her family. And this is something I really appreciate, because like, it makes you appreciate your spouse, especially if you're not from a two-parent household, income wise, because sometimes with the roles, sometimes things switch and one parent has to be the one who stays at home and the other parent has to work. You really start to appreciate what you have, because at the end of the day, so many families can relate to this. And like, she didn't want, like, getting back to the story, she didn't want her husband to also be stressed out about what was going on in the house, so she never said anything. And eventually they leave, because her husband realized, look, y'all keep treating my wife like crap, like we're not about to do this. So they left, and they continuously struggled to provide proper housing and food for their children. And she got pregnant two more times. She had two more kids when things were going a little bit good, but again, financially it wasn't too good. So, another hardship, they did lose a child when the little boy was 3 years old, because they had this terrible storm. And I don't really want to go too much into details with that, but you guys can watch that. It was just really sad. But her and her husband continuously had issues working out all the issues with this child passing away. They had to kind of heal from that. And it was just really hard on their family. But their husband, her husband tried so hard just to keep working and keeping himself together so that his wife wouldn't suffer with him. So all in all, although there are a lot of hardships, there are also some good times. They tried to make things work. All right, so this is the hardships part two. So Boo Sang Gil and Park Young Ran, their relationship was very rough. This is abusive and abusive marriage. And also Gil, he had a lot of issues with adultery and would try to deny it. They eventually did get divorced, and their daughter Boo sneaks around with Oe Soon's son, because she was having a tough life at home, and also Oe Soon's son was too, so they kind of snuck around with each other as well. When that happens, their son goes to war. Oe Soon's son, they go to war, and he goes to the army, and they come back, and Boo is pregnant, which is like, first of all, it wasn't not supposed to happen that way. But the first time, Boo was caught in Oe Soon's son's room, and they weren't doing anything. They were just kind of like, she was just living with him because she didn't want to live at home. And the mom would always notice that her son would ask for a little bit more food than normal. So eventually, she comes and busts into his room and realizes that the girl is there. And at first, they thought it was like their son's like guy friend, and he was just hiding in the closet. But no, it was Boo. She was in the closet, and they were told not to see each other anymore, because I don't know if I told you guys, but Gil and Oe Soon was supposed to get married, and thank God they didn't, because that guy is not a good person, right? And he still like Oe Soon, like even as they age, he still has some type of feelings towards her, and he was shocked that she didn't pick him, although he had money. She just didn't want to be with somebody like that. So let's go back to what we were talking about. So she gets pregnant, and now we're gonna go to this other part. So Oe Soon doesn't have the best relationship with her son due to being so focused on her daughter, and that's another hardship that they went through, because her son, when he was in prison, he kept having this heart to heart trying to tell his parents, like, hey, you guys didn't love me enough. I had to chase love, and I had to like do things that were kind of unorthodox, because you guys didn't love me the way that I needed to be loved. And they finally heard what he was saying when he went to prison. And even after prison, like, the dad was just like, look, they had to sit down, and the dad was like, look, you're gonna have to man up. You're a father now. I know that you're saying that we didn't care for you, but there was a time where, um, his father was going through so much because they lost that child, and the day after they lost the child was the little boy's birthday, literally the day after, and their parents were distraught. So when the man came home from his fishing job, he took the little boy to dinner, and they didn't even have a lot of money, but he still did something for him so he can prove like, hey, I love you. And I love that the son he remembered that day, because that's when he started to realize that, you know what, my dad is right, and this entire time my dad loves me. And I really love that, because sometimes you don't always have like the best parents, in terms of like your parents were growing up too, and like we all have to learn this, even me. Like, you may have so many like issues with your parents, and your parents may say certain things about you and this and that, but it's like you can't always take that for like face value, because at the end of the day we're all still growing and none of us are perfect. And people who try to be perfectionists, that's not really like a good quality biblically. Like, I'm not going to get into that, but it's nothing good about trying to be a perfectionist. And like, you have to give everybody grace, even your parents. Like, you have to give everybody grace. And that's something that their son eventually learned. And that's when he was able to heal from that and be a better husband and wife, a better husband and father to his own family. So, I'm going to talk about Yang. Yang is their daughter. She constantly feels burdened by her family, because she was the only one to have gone to college. And she feels like her family, they just want so much from her. And at times she doesn't like the pressure of that. And I understand how she feels as an older daughter, but in reality, they wanted her to succeed in life. They know that, yeah, look, it may be hard, but they were giving their all to make sure that she was going to college, to make sure she had the things that she needed to, so she can succeed. So Yang, she had to do many jobs to stay in college, one of which was illegal. So in South Korea, during this time, I think like in the 80s or whatever, but I guess it was illegal to tutor. Like, I never knew that. Like, it's like strange. It's clearly not the case anymore, but it was like during that time period, tutoring was illegal. And Yang, she had got a job that led her. She almost went to jail for, but she was hired to take a test for this like illiterate girl, whose mom was like very successful, very rich. She was trying to pay somebody to take the exam because she wanted her daughter to go to a top university in Seoul. And she said, Yang said, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's illegal. So she ended up not doing it. And she still ends up in jail because the woman who hired her lied on her. And they had to, like, pretty much somebody like stood up for her, was like, look, no, you can't do that. And I'm not going to go too much into that. Just know that she did not go to prison because she didn't do nothing wrong. Okay, that's all we're going to say. So Yang, she cuts off her engagement, which is another hardship. She cuts off her engagement because Park never stood up for her enough when it came to his mother disrespecting Yang. And Yang is Oisun's daughter, okay? I'm not going to go through the whole name because, like, I forgot her whole name. So I just said Yang. All right, so hardships part 3. In order to pay for their daughter's education, they often have to sell major things to help her have a better life. So Oisun and her husband, they sold their home, they sold their businesses several times. They opened up several businesses, had to sell it again just to make sure that their daughter was able to have a prosperous life in her education. In return, her daughter was ungrateful, and because she did not understand exactly what her parents sacrificed, this did put a strain in their marriage. Um, yeah, like, man, like, when I tell you, they were doing all types of stuff to make sure their kids, their entire lives is taken care of. And it's like, we don't even realize that stuff. Like, when you're a parent, like, you be doing so much and your kids just be looking at you like, you're not doing enough. And it's like, no, like, you're doing the best that you have with what you have. And then on the other turn, their son was in and out of trouble because he felt like nobody loved him and nobody cared for him. And he was hanging out with people who literally like framed him, and he ended up going to jail while he was still young and he had a baby. So their son had so many issues with self-esteem due to not thinking his family loved him, and that put a strain on their marriage as well. So their children is constantly putting strains on their marriage, then their finances putting strains on their marriage, and then they're not healing because of their baby who passed. It was just a lot for them to go through. But always soon doesn't have the best relationship with her son due to being focused on her daughter, which makes things tougher on her son. And then Park Chung Sub seemed to be appreciated for his beautiful art, but he was with a woman who was emotionally abusive to him and psychologically abusive to him. She pretty much made him feel like, like try to like downplay him as a man, and it's like you don't want to do that. Eventually, both of y'all gonna get tired of that. You can't treat people like that. So he decides to go to the army. They end up breaking up, and he goes to the army. And Park Chung Sub is the man that's gang marries over the other Park. So then Yang Gong Mong, her and her husband, they get pregnant, and they have so many financial issues. And this is Oe Soon's daughter. She is the one who went to college, and she married Park Chung Sub. They get pregnant, and she has a lot of financial issues. They're in and out of housing as well. They ended up moving from a 3 bedroom condo to a 1 bedroom condo, and she had almost lost her life giving birth to her child. So she ended up only having one kid, which, listen, ain't nobody about to be having two, three, four, five kids. One is enough, especially because, like, they didn't always have, and they mentioned it in the show, but they didn't have a lot of stuff to kind of support her. So, like, childbirth is very serious, and like, unfortunately, it is it's not always like promised that you'll be okay. Like, it's a very tough situation. Now moving to the great times. All right, so the great times. Yang Guan Sik, he spent his entire life loving Ooi Soon, and he did everything he could to make her happy and let her know that she was appreciated. He spent his entire life being a great father and a great husband and enjoyed the sea and the sea greatly awarded him, so every time he went, he was able to provide for his family. He was a great father and always encouraged his children to go through things, even though if things, even though they suffered, he always encouraged them to kind of, find the life that you want for yourself and figure out what you want for yourself. Um, Even when he lost his young child, he tried to be there for everybody in his household. He doesn't mind that his wife had the spotlight. Since he's known her, he was just willing to disallow her to, he disappreciated who she was as a person, and he didn't need anything at all. Yang Guan Myung is a very intelligent. She was the first in her family to go to college, which she went to Seoul University, which is the best university to go to, and she also studied abroad in Japan. Oe soon becomes a chief in her local community, which is the mom. She does become a chief in her local community. She was voted because she always took care of her community. Everybody liked her over Gil, who was the man who cheated on his wife several times, pretty much tried to become a chief by sleeping his way to the top with his nasty ass. Okay, that's what he did. So, anywho, going back to Oe Soon, she continues to write her poetry, and she eventually wins a contest that was, it was a contest at a local high school that she went to. But because it was for the high school students, the three aunties actually did enroll Oe Soon's poetry into the contest, and she ends up winning the contest. But because she never put her name on it, and she never told anybody that it was actually her, she just she still won the contest, which is great. It did encourage her to still write, continue to write. And then eventually she is able to publish her own book. So we have Park Young Ran. She eventually divorces Gil, and her mother, which is Gil's mother, gives her this beautiful field, and it's like a lot of land. And so she is able to live off of that. She has money now, and then she also gets she gets her certificate to like sell real estate. So it was another catalyst for her to leave her marriage. And then Yang, she builds a successful company and buys back her mother's house that she grew up in. So Yang Meng eventually gets his life together and he appreciates his parents, especially his father, which makes him a better man. And also Gil, which is Boo's father, he does get Yang Meng out of jail because they realized that he actually did not do the crime that he was pawned, that people said that he did not do that crime, so he was able to get out of prison. So that was another way for him to realize he needed to get his life together. Now we have Yang Wan Sik. He did pass away. Unfortunately, he had a blood disorder which spread to his entire body, and he eventually passed away, which is devastating for the entire family, especially his wife, who lived her she'd known him his entire life, and it was just someone who just passed away, so it was just really hard on her. But this man was so thoughtful that before he passed away, he knew how much time he had left over, but he did everything he could to make their lives kind of move without him there. So he ended up moving all of the like the pots and the pans from their apartment to make sure that his wife wouldn't hurt herself because she was so short. He also given his family gifts. So Yang Guan Sik, he would use any of the money that his daughter given him throughout the years. He would just save. He never spent the money that he even earned himself. So he had like millions of dollars just saved, and he was able to give his family the life that they deserved to have even after his death. So he bought his son like a really nice BMW. He bought his wife all of these beautiful charms for her hair. And he was able to kind of pay off some other debt that they had, some things that they needed in the house. So Oye soon, she does grieve her husband dearly, but she is constantly reminded of him, throughout the apartment because of all of the things that he's done before he passed. So always soon she works at the elderly center just to kind of pass some time away, and they call her teacher because, like, if always soon was able to go to school, she would have definitely been a poet and a teacher because she was just always intelligent and she's always helped people. Like, she's always had a kind heart. So she ends up working at the nursing home because she just felt that she needed to continuously do something to kind of keep her mind from wandering, which is understandable. And when her finances were good, Yang Guan-sik and Oye Soon, they were able to build a business that was really successful. So before Yang Guan-sik passed away, they did open up their fish business again. They opened up a lovely restaurant, and in the series, Yang Guan-sik, he runs into this actress who comes to the remote island in South Korea because she was just having a very tough life and she wanted to just take it away. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, yes, she wanted to take her own life away. And Young Von Sick, he actually kind of coached her to, realize what she had and realize that her life is special and she is valuable to life. Like, she shouldn't just let her life go. So he helped her realize that, and he actually didn't want anything from her. And the woman, she was saying, hey, I can help you. Do you want money? Like, what do you want so I can help you? I have to repay you back for your kindness. So he was like, the way that you will repay me back is that you live. So eventually she came back to help them with a commercial for his family's business. So every time they had any tourists come in, they would go to their family's business. So that also helped them, gain back their finances. And also their son was able to get in on the business too. And he branched off and started doing his own thing too. But it was just such a beautiful moment for their family because now they were able to kind of have their finances finally in a great spot so that everybody could benefit from it, especially always soon, because when they had to give all their money that they could to their daughter who was struggling, they ended up having to work at this like fish warehouse. And like Yang sick, no, he knew that it was kind of affecting his wife, but his wife was just trying to make it seem like she wasn't happy. But he saw right through that, so he tried to do the best he could just to kind of get her out of that situation. So when they opened up that restaurant again, it was just, it was like heaven for them. They were able to kind of take care of themselves. And then when things got really hard, they always stood beside each other. And that's like one other thing that I really enjoyed about the series. Like they had so many hardships like back to back to back, like anybody would in life. But the one thing that stood out about this movie is that they all stood together. They all tried their best to stand together, even with like Gil and then Park, his wife. Um, they did divorce, but they started to realize that they needed each other like after they divorced. And although they had like a really toxic relationship, he started to realize, dang, like, she did a lot in here and all I did was complain and cheat on her. And then the wife said, like, although like he's, the way he was, like she just somehow wanted to come back to him because, that's, I guess that's all she knew. And she's always loved him, but he was just crappy. But I'm not really excusing that. I'm just generally saying that that's what happened in the story. They realized that they needed each other, but they never got back together. It's just a simple look, we got kids together. We're probably just good friends and we'll help each other. I guess that's what I was getting from that last scene with them. Now I'm going to talk about the coincidences in this show. And some words I cannot pronounce for the life of me. I know the words, but I cannot pronounce them all the time because it's something with my mouth. It just doesn't work. So please forgive me. So now I want to talk about the four coincidences in this show that I felt that were really important to mention. So we're going to talk about number one. This is Aosun's mom, and before she passed away, she wanted to come back to work as a woman who had a desk job, which actually did happen. So at the end of the series, we do see that Aosun, she is able to pursue her dream by becoming a published author. So the lady who looked at her story since Oesun was a little girl all the way up to like Oesun's elderly age, which was like in her 60s or 70s, she read all of her poetry from all these years and she just cried and she just related so much to the story that she realized that, wow, for some way they are connected. Oesun and the lady who worked at the desk job were connected, which is so funny because that was actually this lady. The lady that you're looking at right now at number one, she was actually the lady who was sitting at the desk. So that was a great coincidence in this series that really like that was a tearjerker. So number two, the children ended up living the same lives that their parents lived. So Oesun's son ended up living the same life as his own father, and although he had some issues, eventually he became his father. He adored his children and he adored his wife, and he wanted to have the best situation for his wife and his, for his children. And the same with Yang. Yang and Oisun, they were both very intelligent and they wanted to continue to go after the things that they wanted in life. Despite having a lot of issues surrounding them, they just never gave up. And although Oisun, she had to be a mother, she just never gave up. She had people in her corner, but she never gave up. And consequently, all their kids definitely, you know, for even in the hardships and in the good times, they all had a very similar lifestyle. And then number three, we're going to talk about Yang. And Yang, her entire life, she was a very stubborn child, and something that always soon and Seek they realized about her. She's very stubborn. So when she had her first daughter, she was just really like, having a tough time with her, saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're like this. I wasn't never like this." And her own mom had to tell her, like, "Hey, Yang, you were definitely stubborn, And this is kind of a payback. You have the same daughter that I had to raise in you. So that was, that was pretty sweet, I guess. And then we have number 4. This is Seek. He helped a woman who tried to harm herself, right? And I just talked about this in the last few slides, but this lady came to this remote island where Seek was, and he was on a boat, and she was trying to harm herself because she just felt that her life was just so much going on in her life. And then one day, Seek was trying to tell her, hey, you don't want to do this. You have so much to live for. Don't do that. So eventually the lady comes back, and it was just on a random whim. She didn't even realize what was going on. So when she showed up to, she showed up to the restaurant because like Sick was there, and he really wanted to make sure that restaurant was going to work for him and his wife and his family. So they ended up meeting with each other, and she recorded a video for them, like a little commercial for them, so that their business can succeed. So that's not really a coincidence, I guess, but it was really sweet because in the end they still helped each other. And it was just random how that works out. It was kind of a 360 moment where she didn't help in that time, but when she came back around, it did help him because he was able to take care of his family again for the umpteenth time in the show. What I appreciate about this series: true love always finds a way back. Throughout the series, everyone who was supposed to be together, who went through storms, ended up together. Life comes with adversities, and there are also good times. So, despite the several tougher times that they had throughout the series, there are plenty of great times in that everyone who can watch this could relate to. Married couples can relate to this series because life can throw you so many curveballs like over and over again, but it just depends on how you all kind of manage that together is what's going to make the best of any situation. And then if you have a great family relationship or a great community, you can also appreciate this series because all of the people in the community, as well as other families, they all gone through the same thing, but they all helped each other in the end. It wasn't always about competing with one another. For the most part, everybody helped each other. Now we're going to talk about the show ratings. So I'm giving this show a 10 out of 10 because I related to this show so much in the terms of adversities and hardships that you can go through, because this show pretty much depicted an entire life that somebody can go through. The good times, the bad times, people passing away, people going through so many different emotions, people having kids, people, you know, raising kids, all types of different stuff that you can go through throughout your life. And this show just was so beautifully written, and it wasn't anything that was like inappropriate in the show. It's just really sweet and wholesome, and I just really enjoyed it. I really loved watching the show. It just really made me smile. It made me like appreciate my own life that I have, although sometimes you don't always appreciate stuff when you're going through your storms and your battles and stuff, but it's just always a great reminder just to be appreciative of the people in your life who really help you, and also who you help, and also having God in your life. Those things are very important. So this is why I'm rating the show a 10. I absolutely love Korean dramas. They're just really great, and they're really cute, and I love watching them. I also like watching my little Nigerian movies too, because they're a little bit much, but they're really sweet too. So anywho, it's a number 10. I highly recommend anybody watching this series. And then it's on Netflix. All right, now we're going to talk about the biblical meaning behind the show. So, watching this series, I thought about the scripture Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. The tangerines in this series represents the many seasons in life that can be tough. So a little sweetness can go a long way to uplifting your spirits. So I really enjoyed that because, again, we all go through adversities in life, and sometimes you need to pick me up to kind of help you like realize that your situation is going to get better. It's not going to always stay the same, and that's why it's so important to like be calm and be still in the seasons that you go through, and always have God as number one so you can get through those seasons. Because sometimes you're going to have a season where you're just sitting and like there's nothing that you can do about that but just sit, that just sit and reflect. And then sometimes you're going to have seasons where it's time for you to move, it's time for you to get up, it's time for you to make something out of yourself. And then other seasons you're just having to, maybe you have to take care of your kids, and maybe you can't do what you want to do, or maybe if you think you're going to stay at a job, or you're going to stay doing the same thing that you feel like is going to move you forward in life, maybe God wants you to do something else. And that's just literally how I related back to this series, because again, life is so ever changing and it's not going to stay consistent. Everything changes all the time. Sometimes you're going to have adversities, sometimes you're going to have peaceful moments, and it's not going to always be the same. But at the end of the day, that tangerine, that's going to be like your sign that everything is going to work out in the end. And that's exactly what happened with this series. Now we're going to move on to the conclusion. So, in conclusion, when life gets tougher, never give up on your God given gifts. If you want to write a book, do it. If you want to start a business, do it. Don't stop your life and take the narrow path. Always soon finally becomes a published writer. John Guan Ray wishes came true, and her daughter was able to live a fruitful life, and she came back as a successful woman who worked a desk job. Marriage and relationships can be tough, so remember to appreciate your loved ones. Sometimes life isn't as planned and tougher times can come. That's why it's important to trust in God in every adversity you may face. Question of the day: what's one tangerine life threw at you that ended up being a blessing in disguise? So, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed me rambling for so long. I absolutely enjoyed this series, and I really hope that you all do as well. So, if you want to have more of a chat and the comments, you definitely can, because I would be commenting back to you with any opinions that you may have. I might agree with you, I might disagree with you, but let's talk about them down below. And if you all have any K-dramas that you would like to recommend to me, definitely do so. I absolutely love watching K-dramas. I'm really a drama girl, to be honest. Like, I love watching all types of stuff that is drama filled, because that's very entertaining to me for some reason. But this show was very beautifully written. I loved all the actors who played in these series. I saw some of these actors in other things, but I absolutely enjoyed watching this. It was so cute. I loved it so much, so much. So, anywho, thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you next week.